The children gathered in a circle round Elder Archivist Selen. Their wide eyes reflected the soft blue light of the archive chamber. Some of them were barely old enough to fly, their delicate wings still wet from their final molting. Selen spread her own ancient wings and settled onto her teaching perch. She had told this story 1,000 times. She would tell it 1,000 more. Long ago, she began, her voice dropping to a whisper. Before the collective brought peace to the stars, there existed a species so terrifying that entire civilizations fled at the mention of their name. The children leaned forward. A small one named Keth clutched his friend's arm. They called themselves humans, Selen continued. They came from a world of nightmares, a planet where the ground shook and split open, where fire fell from the sky, where the very air could poison you and the water could drown you. Everything on their world wanted to kill them, and yet they survived. How? Little Keth asked. Selen's antennae twitched. Because they refused to die. When predators hunted them, they hunted back. When disease struck them, their bodies learned to fight it. When they were wounded, their flesh would knit itself back together. They could run for days without stopping. They could survive without food for weeks. They formed bonds so strong that they would walk into certain death just to save a friend. The children shivered. These were not qualities they understood. The Vathrani were gentle creatures. They ate nectar and avoided conflict. The idea of a species built for survival at any cost was deeply unsettling. But they are gone now, Selen said. 3,000 years ago, every signal from their region of space went silent. We call it the Great Silence. No one knows what happened. Some say they destroyed themselves. Others say something worse destroyed them. Either way, their corner of the galaxy has been forbidden ever since. She waved a wing toward the ancient star maps on the wall. A large section was marked in red. Quarantine zone. Do not enter. Remember, children. The humans were monsters, and monsters always meet their end. The lesson concluded, and the children scattered to their families. Selen remained alone in the archive, surrounded by the collected knowledge of 6,000 years. She had told the story exactly as her teachers had told her, exactly as generations of archivists had told it before. But lately, something bothered her. She had spent her entire life studying the ancient records. Most of what she knew about humans came from third-hand accounts. Stories passed down through species that had never actually met them. Tales that grew more frightening with each retelling. But last week, she had discovered something strange. A sealed vault in the deepest level of the archive. A vault that required 7 different keys held by 7 different species. A vault that, according to every record she could find, did not exist. Tonight, she would open it. The process took hours. Each key holder had to be convinced. Each lock had to be carefully manipulated. By the time the final seal broke, Selen's wings were trembling with exhaustion. The vault door swung open with a groan of ancient metal. Inside was a single data crystal, and beside it, a note written in the old script. For the day when the darkness returns, Selen inserted the crystal into her reader. What appeared on the screen made her heart stop. These were not myths. These were records. Detailed first contact protocols, diplomatic communications, star charts with precise coordinates, and video footage. She watched humans for the first time. Real humans. They were strange creatures. Soft skin in various shades. Hair on their heads. 2 eyes that faced forward like predators. They moved with an easy grace that seemed to hide incredible strength. In one video, a human lifted a piece of machinery that would have taken for Vathrani to move. In another, a human ran beside a vehicle for what seemed like hours without stopping. In a third, a human held a dying creature of another species in their arms and wept. That last image stayed with her. Monsters did not weep. Monsters did not mourn strangers. The final file was a message. A human female with gray in her hair spoke directly to the camera. If you're watching this, then the silence worked. We have withdrawn. After the wars, after the death, we decided that the galaxy was safer without us in it. We were too dangerous, too quick to anger, too good at killing. We needed time to change, to become something better. But we know that darkness exists beyond our borders. We know that someday, someone will come who threatens everything. When that day arrives, come find us. The coordinates are attached. We will be waiting, and we will help. The The message ended with 8 words that burned themselves into Selen's memory. If the darkness returns, wake us up. Selen sat in the darkness for a long time. Her mind raced through everything she knew about current events. The collective had enjoyed peace for centuries, but peace was ending. The Keth Dominion had emerged from the Galactic Rim 5 years ago. They were a warrior species, tall, armored, brutal. They believed that the strong should rule and the weak should serve. Diplomacy meant nothing to them. Treaties were just paper. They had already absorbed 6 minor species. Their fleets grew larger with each conquest. 3 weeks ago, the collective had sent its finest diplomats to negotiate with the Keth Emperor. Yesterday, their bodies had been returned in pieces. A message was attached: surrender or die. The collective had no military. They had evolved beyond such things. Their technology was focused on communication, medicine, and agriculture. They had no weapons, no soldiers, no way to fight back. In her entire life, Selen had never felt true fear. Now it coiled in her stomach like a living thing. She copied the data crystal and made her way to the council chamber. The journey took her through the heart of the great city. Everywhere she looked, she saw her people going about their lives. Children playing, artists creating, lovers walking together beneath the glow of the twin moons. None of them knew how close the darkness was. None of them understood what was coming. The council was an emergency session when she arrived. 12 representatives from 12 species, all of them talking over each other in panicked voices. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the Keth fleet. Hundreds of warships, maybe thousands. All of them pointed at collective space. "We must evacuate," one counselor was saying. "Take what we can and flee to the outer systems." "There is nowhere to flee," another replied. "The Keth will follow. They want our worlds, our resources, our people as slaves. Then we surrender. We accept their terms. At least some of us will survive. You did not see what they did to the diplomats. Surrender will not save us." Selen stepped forward. "There may be another option." The council fell silent. An archivist speaking in the War Council was unusual. But these were unusual times. Elder Selen, the presiding counselor, said, "What do you know of war?" "Nothing," she admitted. "But I know of those who do." She placed her data crystal on the central console. The ancient files began to play. The council watched in stunned silence as the truth about humans unfolded before them. The records, the footage, the message. When it finished, no one spoke for a long moment. "This is madness," a counselor finally said. "Humans are a myth, a story to frighten children. The coordinates are real," Selen replied. "The records are authentic. I have verified them against 6 different dating methods. These files are 3,000 years old, and they were hidden by our own ancestors, hidden and sealed with a message telling us to use them when the darkness returned. Even if they existed once, they are clearly extinct. The silence proves it." A new voice spoke. Counselor Thras, a massive reptilian from a heavy-gravity world. He was the oldest member of the council and rarely spoke. When he did, others listened. "The silence proves nothing," he said. "It proves only that humans stopped sending signals. That could mean death. It could mean withdrawal. It could mean they simply did not wish to be found. Why would any species choose silence?" "Fear," Thras said. "Not fear of others. Fear of themselves." The archivist's records make it clear. Humans were ashamed of what they had done, what they were capable of. Perhaps silence was their way of protecting the galaxy from themselves. The council erupted into argument. Selen watched as hope and fear battled across their faces. Some wanted to believe. Others could not. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Thras raised his hand for silence. "We have no other options," he said simply. "The Keth will arrive in 3 weeks. We cannot fight them. We cannot outrun them. We cannot negotiate with them. If there is even the smallest chance that the humans are real, that they are still there, that they will help us, we must try." "And if the stories are true?" a counselor asked. "If they are truly monsters?" Thras looked at the display showing the Keth fleet. His ancient eyes were tired but determined. "Then we must hope that our monsters are worse than theirs." The vote was close. But in the end, fear of certain death outweighed fear of ancient legends. A small ship would be sent to the quarantine zone. Selen would lead the expedition. Thras would accompany her as the Council's representative. 3 days later, they crossed the boundary into forbidden space. The stars looked the same. The void was just as empty. But Selen could feel something different here. A weight in the darkness. A sense of being watched. Ahead of them lay the unknown. Behind them lay everything she loved. And somewhere in between, sleeping for. The ship drifted through dead space. Selen stood at the observation window and watched the darkness pass by. They had been traveling for 6 days now. 6 days of nothing. Empty systems. Cold planets. Ancient debris that might once have been stations or ships, but was now just floating metal. Perhaps the skeptics were right, Captain Ven said from behind her. He was a young Vethrani with bright orange wings. Too young to remember a time before the Keth threat. Too young to understand why the old stories mattered. We have not reached the coordinates yet, Selen replied. We have passed through a dozen systems, all of them dead. Whatever lived here is gone, has been gone for thousands of years. Selen did not answer. She simply watched the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity was either waiting or extinct. She refused to believe the latter until she had proof. Counselor Thras joined them at the window. His massive form moved slowly. The low gravity of the ship bothered his joints. The crew is losing hope, he said quietly. They volunteered for this mission believing in the legends. Every empty system takes something from them. Then we must give them something back, Selen said. We must find proof. One way or another. 3 more days passed. 3 more empty systems. The crew stopped meeting Selen's eyes. She could feel their faith dying. She could not blame them. Her own faith was struggling to survive. On the 10th day, everything changed. Contact, the sensor officer called out. His voice cracked with disbelief. I have a signal, artificial, repeating. It is coming from a moon in the next system. The bridge erupted into activity. Selen pushed her way to the sensor display. The signal was weak but clear. A simple pattern repeating every 30 seconds. It was not a language she recognized, but it was definitely artificial. That signal has been running for 3,000 years, the sensor officer whispered. The power source alone. We cannot build anything that lasts that long. Take us in, Thras ordered. Carefully. We do not know who or what is waiting for us. The ship approached the moon slowly. It was a barren rock orbiting a gas giant. Nothing remarkable about it. Nothing to suggest that anyone had ever lived there. Until they got close enough to see the doors. They were enormous, carved into the very surface of the moon. Metal and stone blended together in a way that seemed impossible. No seams, no visible hinges. Just 2 massive slabs of material that clearly opened into something below. Those doors are 3 kilometers wide, Captain Ven said. His voice was barely a whisper. What could possibly need doors that large? No one answered. They all knew. Ships, warships, an entire fleet could fit through doors that size. The signal was coming from inside. Selen made the decision. Land beside the doors. We go in on foot. The captain started to protest. Thras stopped him with a raised hand. The archivist is right. We did not come this far to turn back. If there is danger inside, we face it. If there is hope, we claim it. They landed. Selen, Thras, and a small team of volunteers walked across the surface of the moon toward the great doors. The silence was absolute. No atmosphere meant no sound. Just the crunch of their boots on ancient rock transmitted through their suits. As they approached the doors, something happened. Lights appeared along the edges. A deep vibration ran through the ground. And slowly, impossibly, the doors began to open. They revealed a tunnel leading down into the moon. Lights lined the walls. The way was clearly marked. They know we are here, Thras said. They have known since we entered the quarantine zone, Selen replied. They have been watching, waiting to see if we would come this far. They walked into the moon. The tunnel descended for what felt like hours. The walls changed from rough stone to smooth metal. The lights grew brighter, and then they reached another door. Smaller this time, human-sized. It opened before they could touch it. Beyond was a room unlike anything Selen had ever seen. Warm light, growing plants, the smell of food. And sitting at a simple table in the center of it all was a human. She was old, gray hair cut short, dark skin lined with age. But her eyes were sharp and clear. She wore simple clothing. No weapons that Selen could see. No armor, nothing threatening at all. And yet Selen had never been more afraid in her life. "Please," the human said in perfect Vithrani. "Sit, you have traveled a long way. You must be tired." No one moved. The human smiled. It was a strange expression. Selen had seen it in the old recordings. Humans showed their teeth when they were happy. It took effort not to flinch. "My name is Yukio Kankuo," the human continued. "I am the commander of this facility. We have been waiting for you for a very long time." Thras found his voice first. "You speak our language. We speak all the languages of the collective. We have been listening to your transmissions for 3,000 years, learning, watching, waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to need us." Commander Okonkwo gestured to the chairs around the table. "Please, I promise you are safe here. No harm will come to you." Slowly, carefully they sat. Selen found herself directly across from the human. This close, she could see details she had missed. The fine lines around the eyes, the calluses on the hands, the way the human breathed slowly and steadily. Completely calm despite the historic nature of this moment. "You are not what the stories described," Selen said. "The stories described monsters." "Yes," Commander Okonkwo nodded. "The stories were not wrong. We can be monsters. We have been monsters. That is why we left. That is why we chose the silence. I do not understand." The commander leaned back in her chair. Her eyes grew distant. When she spoke again, her voice was heavy with old grief. 3,000 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself. We fought wars that killed billions. We burned worlds. We created weapons that could crack planets in half. We looked at ourselves and saw only death. So we made a choice. We withdrew from the galaxy. We sealed ourselves away. We decided to become something better. And did you? Thras asked. "We try. Every day, we try. We teach our children about the old wars, about the horrors we committed, about why we must never return to that path. We built a society focused on protection rather than conquest, on healing rather than hurting, on being ready to help when we are needed." "You built an army," Selen said. "Yes, but not the kind you are thinking of. Not an army for conquest. An army for defense, for rescue, for the day when someone came to us asking for help." She leaned forward, and her eyes locked with Selen's. "So tell me, who is threatening you, and how many innocent people are in danger?" Selen told her everything. The Keth Dominion, the failed diplomacy, the murdered ambassadors, the approaching fleet, the collective's complete lack of military capability. As she spoke, more humans entered the room. They listened silently. Some of them took notes. Others simply watched with expressions that Selen was learning to read. Anger, sadness, determination. When she finished, Commander Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. "The Keth have done this before," she finally said. "We have been watching them for decades. They absorb species, enslave them, strip their worlds of resources, then move on to the next target. You knew about them. Why did you not act?" "Because we made a vow. We would not interfere unless we were asked. We would not impose ourselves on the galaxy again. We would wait until someone came to us." Thras understood. "And now someone has." "Yes, now someone has." The commander stood. "Come with me. There is something you need to see." She led them through the facility. It was vast, larger than Selen had imagined. They passed living quarters where families went about their daily lives. Children played in open spaces. Adults worked at various tasks. It looked like any peaceful community. It did not look like a military base. Until they reached the observation deck. The window looked out over an enormous cavern, and in that cavern sat the fleet. Thousands of ships. They hung in perfect formation, dark and silent, waiting. They ranged in size from small fighters to massive vessels that could have held entire cities. Every single one of them was pointed at the exit, ready to launch at a moment's notice. "We have been building for 3,000 years, Commander Okonkwo said. "Every generation has added to the fleet. Every generation has trained for this moment. We did not know when it would come. We only knew that it would." Selen stared at the ships. The folktales had not prepared her for this. The stories spoke of human ferocity and strength. They said nothing about this kind of patience, this kind of dedication. An entire civilization spending 3 millennia preparing to help strangers they had never met. Why? She asked. Why would you do this for us? You do not even know us. Commander Okonkwo turned to face her. The human's expression was unreadable. Because we remember what it felt like to be alone in the dark, to face extinction with no one coming to help. We survived, but billions did not. We carry that memory. We carry the weight of everyone we could not save. She looked back at the fleet. We cannot change the past. We cannot bring back the dead. But we can make sure that when the next species faces the darkness, they do not face it alone. Thros spoke quietly. The collective will be grateful beyond words. We do not want gratitude. We want to help. That is all we have ever wanted. She paused. But there is something you must understand. We are not saviors. We are not gods. We are just people, flawed and broken and trying to do better. If we go to war for you, people will die. Some of them will be ours. Some of them will be. Iselin had thought she understood humans from the old recordings. She had been wrong. Nothing could have prepared her for the reality of watching humanity wake up. Within hours of the vote, the hidden base transformed. The quiet corridors filled with purpose. Families said goodbye to soldiers. Children hugged parents who might not return. There were tears. There was fear. But beneath it all was something else. A sense of rightness. As if this was the moment they had been waiting for their entire lives. Commander Okonkwo led Selin and Thros through the chaos. She explained what was happening as they walked. We have 57 billion humans spread across this sector. Hidden stations, hollowed asteroids, underground cities on dead moons. All of it invisible to outside sensors. All of it connected by communication networks that have been perfected over 3,000 years. How is that possible? Thros asked. We have mapped this region. We detected nothing. You detected what we wanted you to detect. Empty space. Dead worlds. Nothing worth investigating. She smiled slightly. Humans are very good at hiding. We have had a lot of practice. They entered a massive hangar. Ships were being prepared for launch. Technicians swarmed over hulls, making final checks. Pilots ran through pre-flight routines. The sound was overwhelming. Metal clanging. Engines warming. Voices calling out orders. The fleet has been ready for centuries, Okonkwo continued. We run training exercises constantly. Every human who can fight knows their role. Every ship has been maintained to perfection. We do not need days to prepare. We need hours. Selin watched a group of soldiers loading weapons onto a transport. They moved with practiced efficiency. But what struck her was how they treated each other. Jokes, laughter, hands clasped in greeting. These were not cold warriors preparing for battle. These were friends, family, people who cared about each other deeply. I have a question, she said carefully. In the old stories, humans were described as savage, brutal, incapable of mercy. But everything I see here contradicts that. Your people are warm, kind, gentle with each other. Commander Okonkwo stopped walking. Her expression grew serious. Both things are true. That is what makes us dangerous. I do not understand. Come with me. She led them to an observation deck overlooking a training arena. Below, a group of human soldiers was running combat drills. They moved through an obstacle course, engaging holographic enemies. Selin watched, trying to understand what she was seeing. At first, it looked chaotic. Bodies moving in all directions. Weapons firing constantly. No apparent coordination. Then something shifted. An alarm sounded. The holographic enemies changed color, indicating a new threat level. And the humans transformed. The chaos disappeared. Every movement became precise. Every action coordinated. They flowed around each other like water, covering each other's positions, anticipating each other's needs. A soldier went down with a simulated injury. Immediately, 2 others moved to protect her while a 4th dragged her to safety. They did not hesitate. They did not calculate. They simply acted. We call it the switch, Okonkwo said quietly. The ability to go from peaceful to lethal in an instant. It is not something we train. It is something we are. When the people we love are threatened, something inside us changes. We become focused, efficient, utterly ruthless. That is what the old stories described. Yes, but the stories missed the key point. The switch only activates in defense of others. We are not mindless killers. We are protectors who become killers when we must. The difference is everything. The drill ended. The soldiers below relaxed immediately. They laughed, helped each other up. The wounded soldier received mock applause for her dramatic death performance. Just like that, they were gentle again. That is why we chose the silence, Okonkwo continued. We knew what we were capable of. We knew that if we stayed in the galaxy, if we kept involving ourselves in conflicts, we would eventually cross a line we could not uncross. So we left. We built a society where the switch was never needed, where we could be who we wanted to be rather than what we were made to be. But now you are activating it again. Yes, because innocent people are going to die if we do not. And that is the one thing we cannot accept. Thras had been silent through this exchange. Now he spoke. The Keth are warriors born. They have been fighting for thousands of generations. What makes you think you can defeat them? Okonkwo's smile was thin and cold. It was the first time Selen had seen anything frightening in the old woman's face. The Keth fight because they enjoy it. They conquer because they want to. Their motivation is power, pleasure, dominance. She paused. We fight because someone is going to hurt people we have decided to protect. Our motivation is love. And that makes us far more dangerous than any warrior race. She led them out of the observation deck and onto the main flight deck. Ships were launching now. One by one, they rose through the hangar and out into space. Each departure was marked by applause from the ground crews. Cheers and well wishes followed every ship as it disappeared into the void. Will you come with us? Okonkwo asked. Your people should see this. They should know that they are not alone. Selen looked at Thras. The old counselor's eyes were bright with something she had never seen in him before. Hope. We will come, she said. We will bear witness. They were given quarters on the command ship, a vessel called Remembrance. Selen did not need to ask what it was meant to remember. The name was a promise, a vow that humanity would never forget why they had chosen this path. The journey to collective space would take for days at maximum speed, for days to prepare, for days to wonder if they had made the right choice. Selen spent the time talking to the crew. She wanted to understand these strange creatures who had hidden for so long, and were now rushing toward war to help strangers. She met a young pilot named Marcus. He showed her pictures of his children and explained that he was fighting, so they would grow up in a galaxy where people helped each other. She met an old engineer named Elena, who had been building ships for 60 years. Elena talked about her grandmother, who had been one of the original architects of the Silence. She said her family had always known this day would come. She met a medic named David who had trained his whole life for combat medicine, but had never treated a real wound. He was terrified. He was also completely determined to go. Each conversation reinforced the same truth. These were not monsters. They were people. People who loved and feared and hoped like anyone else. The only difference was their capacity for violence and their iron determination to use that capacity only in defense of others. On the third day, Selen found Commander Okonkwo alone on the observation deck. The stars streamed past as the ship traveled faster than light. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. I have been thinking about the old stories, Selen said as she joined her, and they were wrong about almost everything. But they were also right about everything that mattered. Okonkwo nodded slowly. We are exactly what the stories said. Strong enough to survive anything. Stubborn enough to never give up. Capable of forming bonds that death itself cannot break. All of that is true. But you are also kind, compassionate, gentle. Also true. We are both things at once. That is the human condition. We contain multitudes, angels and demons sharing the same flesh. She turned to face Selen directly. When the fighting starts, you will see things that will haunt you. You will see humans do things that no other species would consider. We will take risks that seem insane. We will sacrifice ourselves for people we just met. We will refuse to give up even when victory is impossible. And when we are wounded, when we are dying, we will keep fighting until our bodies physically cannot move anymore. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to understand. When the battle is over, some of your people will be afraid of us. They will see what we are capable of, and they will wonder if they made a mistake asking for our help. I need you to be able to explain. To tell them why we are the way we are. And why is that? Okonkwo looked back at the stars. Her voice was quiet but steady. Because we remember what it feels like to lose everything. To watch the people we love die while we are helpless to save them. Every human carries that memory in their bones. It is passed down from generation to generation. The grief, the rage, the absolute refusal to ever feel that helpless again. She paused. We are not fighting the Keth because we want to prove ourselves. We are not fighting for glory or territory or power. We are fighting because somewhere in collective space, children are looking up at the sky and wondering if anyone is coming to save them. Her voice hardened. Someone is coming, and we will not stop until those children are safe. The next day, they arrived at the edge of collective space. Sensor reports flooded in. The Keth fleet had already begun its attack. 3 worlds were under bombardment. Millions of civilians were dying. Commander Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Remembrance. Around her, the human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. 1,000. Admiral Kethfor stood on the command deck of his flagship and watched his fleet burn another world. The bombardment had been going on for 6 hours. Soon there would be nothing left but ash and glass. Another victory for the Dominion. The outer colonies have fallen, his tactical officer reported. The central worlds are defenseless. We can begin the final assault within the day. Kethfor allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. This conquest had been almost too easy. The collective had no military, no weapons, no will to fight. They were prey in the purest sense, soft creatures who had forgotten what it meant to struggle for survival. Begin the approach to their capital world, he ordered. I want their council on their knees before the sun sets, Admiral. The sensor officer's voice was strange, confused. We are detecting unknown contacts. Define. Unknown. We have never seen energy signatures like these. They appeared from nowhere. Thousands of vessels. They are approaching at impossible speed. Kethfor strode to the sensor display. The readings made no sense. Ships that should not exist. Power levels that defied physics. And they were coming directly toward his fleet. Identify them. We cannot. Their configuration does not match any known species. Their technology is. Admiral, I do not understand what I am looking at. A communication signal cut through every frequency. It overrode every system on every Keth ship simultaneously. A human voice filled the command deck. Calm, clear, absolute. This is the United Earth Defense Fleet. We are not here to conquer. We are here to help. To those who came in peace, we offer protection. To those who came to harm innocence, we offer one chance to withdraw. Kethfor stared at the display in disbelief. Humans, the old legends, the folk tales that warriors told their children to make them brave. Humans were not real. They could not be real. Admiral, orders? He pushed his shock aside. Whatever these creatures were, they were outnumbered. His fleet had over 1,000 warships. These newcomers had perhaps half that number. And their vessels were smaller, weaker. This would be a slaughter. Destroy them, he said. All ships, attack. The Keth fleet surged forward. 1,000 warships opened fire. Energy beams and kinetic weapons streaked across the void. It was enough firepower to crack a moon. Nothing could survive such an assault. Nothing did survive. Because nothing was hit. The human ships moved in ways that should have been impossible. They twisted and spun and danced through the weapon's fire. Not a single shot connected. They flowed around the Keth fleet like water round stones. And then they struck back. Kethfor had never seen weapons like these. Beams of pure light that cut through shields like they did not exist. Missiles that seemed to know exactly where to hit for maximum damage. And the precision. Every shot found its target. Every attack disabled rather than destroyed. His tactical display lit up with damage reports. Ships losing weapons. Ships losing engines. Ships drifting helpless in the void. But not destroyed. Not killed. Just stopped. They are not trying to kill us. His tactical officer said in disbelief. They are disabling our fleet. That makes no sense. What warrior shows mercy in battle? They are not warriors, Admiral. I do not know what they are. The human ships did not fight like any species Kethfor had ever faced. They did not hold formations. They did not protect their positions. They moved constantly, flowing around each other in patterns that seemed random but somehow always placed them exactly where they needed to be. When one of their ships took damage, others immediately moved to cover it. When a Keth warship targeted a damaged human vessel, 3 more appeared from nowhere to block the attack. They fought as a single entity, 1,000 ships with one mind, one purpose, and that purpose was not victory, it was protection. Kethvor watched as a small human ship threw itself into the path of a missile, meant for a fleeing collective transport. The ship was destroyed instantly, but the transport escaped. They sacrificed themselves, his officer whispered. For strangers, the battle was over in less than an hour. The mighty Keth fleet drifted broken and silent, not destroyed, humiliated. 1,000 warships brought low by an enemy that refused to kill them. The human voice returned to every frequency. The battle is concluded. All Keth vessels will lower their shields and prepare to receive medical teams. Any further resistance will be met with force. Any cooperation will be met with care. Choose wisely. Kethvor wanted to fight. Every instinct screamed at him to go down swinging, to prove his worth in death since he had failed in life. But he looked at the disabled ships around him. He thought of the thousands of warriors depending on his decision. He lowered his shields. The humans came aboard his flagship within minutes. They were smaller than he expected, soft-looking. Their skin had no scales. Their bones had no armor. They should have been weak. They should have been prey. But their eyes told a different story. These were not the eyes of prey. These were the eyes of predators who had chosen to be gentle. There was something ancient in those eyes, something that had seen too much death and had decided that enough was enough. The leader approached him, a young human with dark skin and careful movements. I am Captain Marcus Chen. You are Admiral Kethvor? I am. Your wounded are being treated. Your dead are being recovered. Your ships will be repaired enough to return to Dominion space. You are free to leave. You are letting us go? Yes. Why? You could destroy us. You could enslave us. That is what victors do. Captain Chen looked at him for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired. Because we are not like you. We do not want to rule. We do not want revenge. We just want the killing to stop. That is weakness, is it? Chen gestured to the ruined command deck. Your fleet is broken. Your invasion is over. You will return to your emperor and explain how you lost 1,000 warships without destroying a single enemy vessel. And you will tell him that the humans are awake. He leaned closer. The next time the Dominion threatens innocent people, we will not be so gentle. This was a warning. Take it seriously. Kethvor had no response. He had been a warrior his entire life. He had conquered a dozen species. He had never felt fear in battle. He felt it now. The humans left as quickly as they had come. Within hours, the repaired Keth ships began their long journey home. They carried no prisoners, no stolen resources, no trophies of war. They carried only a message. In collective space, the reaction was different. The civilians, who had been waiting for death, watched in disbelief. As human ships arrived to help them, medical teams treated the wounded. Engineers repaired damaged infrastructure. Food and supplies appeared as if by magic. Sullen walked among the survivors on one of the attacked worlds. She had seen the battle from the Remembrance's observation deck. She had watched humans die to protect strangers. Now she was seeing the aftermath. A young Vathrani child approached her. The child had been hiding in a shelter during the bombardment. Her wings were singed. Her eyes were still wide with fear. Are the monsters gone? The child asked. Sullen looked up at the human ships in orbit, at the small figures moving through the streets, helping wherever they could, at the soldiers who had just won a battle and were now gently handing out food to hungry children. Yes, she said softly. The monsters are gone. Different monsters came to save us. These monsters seem nice. They are. That is what makes them so special. Commander Okonkwo found Sullen later that evening. The old woman looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, lines of grief on her face. The battle had cost the humans. Ships destroyed. Lives lost. The price of keeping a promise to strangers. We lost 217 people, Okonkwo said quietly. Each one of them knew the risk. Each one of them chose to come anyway. I am sorry. Do not be. They died doing exactly what they wanted to do. Protecting people who needed protection. There's no better death for a human. She looked up at the stars. But that does not make it hurt any less. They stood together in silence for a long moment. Around them, the work of recovery continued. Humans and collective species working side by side. The beginning of something new. What happens now? Selen asked. Now we wait. The Keth will return to their empire and report what happened. Their emperor will have to decide whether to continue his conquest or retreat. We have made our position clear. The next move is his, and if he chooses war. Okonkwo's smile was grim. Then we will finish what we started. But I do not think he will. The Keth understand strength. They understand power. What they witnessed today was neither. It was something they have never encountered before. What was it? Restraint. We could have destroyed every one of their ships. We could have killed every one of their warriors. We chose not to. That choice is more frightening than any weapon. Selen understood. The Keth had met an enemy that could defeat them utterly and had chosen mercy instead. That was not weakness. That was terrifying strength. The strength to destroy and the will to hold back. That was what humanity had become during the silence. Not less dangerous. More dangerous. Dangerous enough to break a fleet without killing it. Dangerous enough to win a war without starting one. The folktales had spoken of monsters. They had not mentioned that the most frightening thing about humans was their capacity for gentleness. Somewhere in the ruins of the attacked world, a child laughed. The sound rang out across the broken streets like a bell. Life returning. Hope the Keth Emperor received the news in silence. His throne room was vast. Ancient stones soaked in the blood of 1,000 conquered species. Trophies of war lined the walls. Skulls and banners and broken weapons. A testament to generations of dominance. Admiral Kethver knelt before him. The greatest warrior of the Dominion. Humbled, defeated, afraid. Say it again. The Emperor commanded. We were defeated, magnificence. Our fleet was disabled within the hour. We could not destroy a single enemy vessel. We could not even strike them. And yet you live, they chose not to kill us, magnificence. They repaired our ships. They treated our wounded. They sent us home. The Emperor rose from his throne. He was old now. Scars covered every inch of his scaled body. He had fought in 100 battles, won 100 victories, built an empire that spanned a quarter of the galaxy. He had never encountered mercy. These humans, he said slowly, the legends speak of them. The legends are true, magnificence. Every word, perhaps worse than true. They fight as one mind. They sacrifice themselves for strangers. They could have ended us. They did not. Why? Their commander said it was a warning, a demonstration of what they could do if we continued our conquest. The Emperor walked to the great window that overlooked his capital city. Millions of Keth lived below, warriors and workers and children. An entire civilization built on the foundation of strength, of conquest, of taking what they wanted from those too weak to stop them. Now they faced an enemy that could stop them, an enemy that had chosen not to. What would you advise, Admiral? Kethvor hesitated. To counsel retreat was weakness. To counsel continued assault was suicide. I would advise patience, magnificence. The humans are an unknown factor. We do not understand their technology. We do not understand their tactics. We do not understand their motivation. To continue the campaign would be to fight blind against an enemy we cannot predict. You advise retreat. I advise waiting, learning, understanding. The galaxy is vast. There are other territories to claim, other species to absorb. The collective can wait until we know more about these humans. The Emperor considered this for a long time. His instinct screamed for war, for revenge, for proving that the Dominion feared nothing and no one. But he had not built an empire by following instinct alone. He had built it by knowing when to fight and when to wait, by choosing his battles carefully, by surviving when others did not. The campaign is suspended, he said finally. Recall all fleets to defensive positions. We will watch, we will learn, and when the time is right, we will strike again. Admiral Kethvor bowed his head. Relief and shame warred in his hearts. He had failed, but he had also saved his people from a war they could not win. Perhaps that was enough. Across the galaxy, the collective council met in emergency session. The great chamber was packed, representatives from every species. observers from a dozen neutral worlds, and standing before them all, Commander Yukio Kankwo. The Keth fleet has withdrawn, she reported. Our intelligence suggests they will not attack again in the near future. The immediate threat is neutralized. The chamber erupted in applause, relief and joy and gratitude. They had been saved. The darkness had been pushed back. Life would continue. Counselor Thras raised a hand for silence. Commander, on behalf of the collective, we extend our deepest gratitude. You came to our aid when we had no hope. You fought for us when we could not fight for ourselves. We are forever in your debt. There is no debt, Okonkwo replied. We did what we should have done 3,000 years ago. We helped those who needed help. Then let us discuss the future. The collective wishes to form a formal alliance with humanity, a partnership of equals. We offer our knowledge, our resources, our friendship. The chamber murmured agreement. It seemed obvious. The humans had saved them. Of course they should become allies, partners, perhaps even family. But voices of dissent emerged. A counselor from one of the attacked worlds stood. I mean no disrespect to our saviors, she said carefully. But I have seen what humans can do. I have seen their weapons. I have seen their intensity. How do we know they will not turn that power against us someday? How do we know we have not traded one master for another? The chamber fell silent. The question hung in the air. It was the question everyone had been too afraid to ask. Okonkwo did not seem offended. She nodded slowly, as if she had expected this. You are right to be afraid. We are exactly as dangerous as your stories claimed. Perhaps more so. We have spent 3,000 years becoming more efficient at violence, not less. If we chose to conquer you, you could not stop us. The chamber tensed. This was not the reassurance they had expected. But we made a choice long ago. We decided that our strength would only be used to protect, never to dominate. We chose to be guardians, not rulers. That choice is renewed every generation. Every human child learns why we chose the silence. Every human adult understands the responsibility we carry. She looked around the chamber. Her eyes met the eyes of every counselor in turn. I cannot promise you that humanity will never change. I cannot guarantee that we will always be worthy of your trust. All I can tell you is that right now, today, we want nothing from you. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your resources. We do not want your obedience. We just want to help. And when you no longer need us, we will step back. That is the promise I make on behalf of every human being. Elder Archivist Selen stood. The chamber turned to look at her. The one who had found the old records. The one who had brought humanity back to the galaxy. I have spent my life studying history, she said. I have read the stories of 1,000 species. Do you know what the old tales about humans all have in common? They focus on power, on strength, on the capacity for destruction. But they miss the most important thing. She walked to stand beside Okonkwo. I have watched humans for weeks now. I have seen them fight. I have seen them grieve. I have seen them laugh and love and worry about their families. And I have realized something. The stories we told about humans were incomplete. They described the thunder but not the rain, the fire but not the warmth. She turned to face the chamber. Yes, humans are dangerous. Yes, they could destroy us if they chose. But they do not choose destruction. They choose protection. They choose mercy. They choose to use their terrifying strength in defense of strangers. She paused. The folk tales were true, every word, but they missed the most important truth of all. Humans are monsters who chose to become guardians, and that choice makes all the difference. The vote that followed was unanimous. The alliance was formed. Humanity and the collective would stand together, partners in a galaxy that had just become much safer for peaceful species. Months passed. Human ships patrolled alongside collective vessels. Human engineers shared technology. Human teachers shared knowledge. The partnership grew stronger with each passing day. The fear faded slowly. Other species watched the alliance and began to understand. These humans were not conquerors. They were protectors. Their presence made the galaxy safer for everyone. 1 year after the battle, Selen returned to her archive. The chamber where she had once taught children to fear the human legends. Now she taught something different. A new group of younglings gathered around her. Their eyes were bright with curiosity. They had been raised in a galaxy that knew humanity. that had seen their sacrifice, that understood what they truly were. "Tell us about the humans," little Keth asked, the same young one who had trembled at the old stories. Older now, braver, Selen smiled. "Long ago, there was a species born on a death world. They survived everything their planet threw at them. They became strong and stubborn and fierce. They fought terrible wars. They almost destroyed themselves. The children listened. This part they knew. But then something changed. They looked at what they had become and decided it was not enough. They withdrew from the galaxy. They spent 3,000 years learning how to be better, how to use their strength for protection instead of destruction." She thought of Commander Okonkwo, of Captain Chen, of all the humans who had fought and died for strangers. When the darkness came, they returned, not as conquerors, not as monsters, but as guardians. They fought for us. They bled for us. They asked for nothing in return. Little Keth raised his hand. "Are they still scary?" Selen laughed softly. "Yes, very scary. They can fight like nothing you have ever seen. They can survive wounds that would kill any of us. They form bonds so strong they will die for people they just met." She leaned forward. "But here is the secret the old stories never told you. The scariest thing about humans is not their strength. It is not their stubbornness. It is not their capacity for violence. What is it? Their kindness. The fact that they could rule us all and choose not to. The fact that they saw our suffering and could not look away. The fact that they heard a stranger ask for help and answered without hesitation." She stood and walked to the window. Outside, a human patrol ship drifted past the station. Its lights blinked softly in the darkness. "The old tales taught us to fear humans, but the truth is different. We should not fear them. We should be grateful they exist, because as long as humans street,